Reference, reference, reference. Hi, welcome to the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. In today's video, I'm going to go over something which a lot of people think is a little bit boring, and that's referencing. So over the years, I've built up a folder of tracks that I use to reference against, where I might want to get my track in the same kind of ballpark in terms of loudness, or how the bottom end sounds, or how some guitars might sound, or I might really like a vocal in a track, or might really like the way that the top end sounds in a track, or I might like the stereo image of the track. So I have all these different tracks that I've built up over years in my reference folder, and I can just reach out for those at any point in a mix or a master to compare my track against. Now obviously the idea of referencing has been around for some time. In the 80s we used to plug in a turntable or a reel-to-reel or cassette into the desk, and we would reference commercially available tracks against our mixes and masters and try and get them in the same ballpark. And nowadays there's plugins available, and my favourite plugin is from Plugin Alliance called the Adapter Audio Metric AB. So here we have the Metric AB plugin open on my session. I have it loaded in on the main output, and therefore any track that I play can be selected by A, and any track that I want to reference against can be clicked on and selected as B. Now you have 16 different options here for tracks to load in. You can drag and drop, or you can load audio file. Now this is not going to be a video explaining every single function of this plugin. It's more going to be a practical video on how I use it as a mastering engineer, and hopefully some of you can take something from that and maybe use it in a similar way. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to play any of the tracks here that I have as references because of copyright reasons, so I'm going to have to keep that firmly locked on there, unfortunately. The tracks that I choose for reference will completely depend on the song that I'm working on. It can be tracks that the client's provided as reference, or it can be tracks from my reference folder, which I'll use for particular styles and genres, or particular instruments, or just particular situations. So here you have a basic peak and RMS readout. You have the button here to select between A and B. You can minimize it, and you can have your presets, etc. Pretty straightforward. You can select mono, you can select sides. All really useful tools as a mastering engineer and as a mix engineer. Here you can match the volume of the track that you're using to reference and the track that you're working on simply by pressing play, by pressing match. And it will match the levels between the track that have selected here and the track that you're working on. Double click takes it back to 0. Here in playback mode you can select sync, cue, latch or manual. I tend to have it in sync, and what that will do in terms of time, it will sync up the track that you're working on to the track that you're referencing. Here you can go much deeper in the options, but as I said, I'm not going to go into that too much. I just really want to show you how I use it as a mastering engineer. And here you have the filters that you can choose, where you can isolate certain frequencies. I'll just show you. Sub bass, bass, low mids, mid, high. And you can change the crossovers just here as well, and the slopes. And you have high pass, low pass, etc. I tend to leave it there, and I tend to leave it there, and I have it already set up where I like it, which I actually think is the default. Plugin Alliance and Adapter have, pretty good default, and to be honest with you, I've just left it at that. Reset completely resets the filters, so it just plays the track as is. Then if you switch to Spectrum and you have it as dual, it will show you the track that you're using as a reference and the track that you're working on just here. And by moving this around, you can have a pretty good readout of the decibel level and where it is in the frequency spectrum. Again, that tool alone is really, really useful as a mastering engineer. If you click it to single, it will just show the track that you have selected here. And if you have it as layered, it will have the reference track and the track that you're playing layered. I tend to use it in dual, to be honest. Correlation will show you any phasing issues. To be honest, any phasing issues I tend to sort out in a different tool. Stereo image will be shown here. Dynamics. And finally, loudness. This will give you an accurate readout of the LUFS, True Peak, RMS, integrated short-term momentary, etc. All that you need as a mixing and mastering engineer, basically, of the track that you're referencing and the track that you're working on. So that's very basic. Now, obviously, these can all be changed here. So I could have layer, correlation. But again, I tend to keep that on dual. Here you have target presets. In dynamics, I tend to have it set to competitive. Loud, just a little bit too loud for me. Loudness, I tend to go for loud master, but you have a whole selection here, Spotify, iTunes, etc., etc. And then really it's down to referencing. So you have the track that you're working on. And then you would click on each one of your reference tracks for the particular purpose that you're using that reference track. For instance, Jerry Beltram, Energy Flash, I like the low end. So I would want to check the low end on that, and I would compare it with the track that I'm working on. With the Vision, it's a track that's really, really loud, but somehow manages to keep its dynamics. Excellent master, an excellent mix. I think it's -8 LUFS. So I use that as a kind of an overall reference. Around the world, again, I also use that as an overall reference, and I really, really like the bass and the low mids in that track. So I will reference these and isolate these and compare them to my actual track. And this Alan Brax track, I really, really like the mid-range and the way the snares sound, the transients in the snares, and just kind of around about 5K. So it's one of the tracks that I use to reference 5K. So that would be the mids and the highs. So I would isolate these. And it's really that simple. And that's why I love this plugin, because I can literally flick between my reference tracks, flick between different areas. I can look visually. I can check the phase. I can check the stereo image. I can check the dynamics overall. I have a decent readout. If I want something a little bit more accurate, I can go for another plugin. But this really offers everything that you need. And then the ability to be able to have 16 different tracks. You know, you can literally, when you're mixing a track, have a track that you really like the sound of the guitars, the vocals, the snare drums, the strings, the brass. Have them all in your reference folder. There'll be go-tos, and you just load them up in here, and then you can check the frequency ranges, flick between it really, really easily. It's just, I mean, out of all the plugins I use, and I do use a lot, this plugin is used on every single mix and master. It's invaluable. I don't work for Plugin Alliance. I'm not getting anything for doing this video and plugging this video, excuse the pun there. But seriously, sometimes they sell it for as cheap as $29.99 with vouchers. It really is a plugin worth having. Totally invaluable as a mastering engineer, as a mixing engineer. So there you have it. Now, as I said, this wasn't a video explaining every single button in the plugin. There are videos that go way, way deeper into that. And obviously there's the manual as well, which is excellent. It was more of a kind of meat and potatoes practical video showing you how I use it as a mastering engineer. The most important thing is building up a reference folder, having songs that you go to and you can reach for at any time you want, drag them, drop into the plugin, songs that you like the kick drum, songs that you like the guitar, songs that you like saxophone. You don't actually have to like the song as a whole, you can just like particular parts of the song. And then with that plugin, you can easily switch between certain parts of the frequency spectrum, compare them to the track that you're working on, and get them in the same ballpark. It just truly is one of the most invaluable plugins that I use. And as I said, I use it every single day on every single mix and master. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more mixing and mastering tutorials and reviews. This is the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. Until next time.